Howdy, howdy! We are live on a Friday night with the last ever, very final deep dive discussion we're gonna do on a Star Trek Discovery episode.
Yeah, that's a weird thing to say. A
But but
true
we're
full
seasoned
circle.
professionals. We've been doing this since day one.
Yeah, I suppose this is the case. And I'd been podcasting for years before that too. So
Yeah, I was the rank amateur. This was the first podcast I've ever
that's
attempted.
all right.
I had
The whole industry is made up of rank amateurs.
I had guested on, I think I was on our friend Nick's Geek Bombast podcast one
Yeah,
time. I
yeah.
guested on there when they were recording at your store, but other than that, it all started here with Tex-Trek with Star Trek Discovery. So that being said, I see some people chatting in the live audience ready for us to chat about this episode. So Dave, shall we?
We shall.
All right then. Let's fly, y'all. I'm Fatheree,
This is Dave.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 289th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight we are talking about the Star Trek Discovery series finale, season 5, episode 10, Life Itself, written by Kyle Jarrow and Michelle Paradise, the showrunner herself, directed by Olatunde Osunsanmi, the head producer of directors. And this is, of course, a big deal for us. It is the final episode of Discovery. So it was a long episode, too. It was like almost an hour and a half long. So a lot to go over. But before we do all of that, we do need to do some quick housekeeping. I know Dave and I are both going to have a lot to say on this one, but Dave, we have to give a big thank you and shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make our weekly live show possible. So thank you so much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A., Joel Vallis, Ben Ginium, Arthur Lamoureux, Wanda Valentine, and our anonymous supporters. We are going to have our monthly Patreon watch party for June coming up in a couple of weeks on June 15th. And any of our patrons are allowed to attend those watch parties. And we're going to be watching... I was actually having a conversation with Dave about this. Like, what are we going to watch in June? And I was like, oh, coming off of season 5 of Discovery, should we do The Chase? And Dave was like, probably everyone already watched The Chase 2 months ago at the beginning of the season. So instead we're going to do Armageddon Games, the Deep Space Nine episode that introduced the Kelleran species, like our beloved captain, now I guess Commander Rayner. Maybe he'll be captain again someday. He survived the show, hey, so we were all
Yeah,
worried about that last week.
yeah. There was a few predictions that did not happen. I was glad about.
Yeah. So we
By the
called
way,
some stuff right, we called some stuff wrong, but
Father, I feel like a special bonus thanks to I want to say to the patrons as we reach this milestone. This is they helped carry us the way these in the latter half of this podcast, this
yeah.
run of ours, and so thank you, sincere thanks again for all the support and assistance.
Yeah, it would be cool if we could like go back in time, like Burnham did in Face the Strange when she was like time jumping all over the place and had to go face like the earlier version of herself. It'd be cool if we could go find like the season 1 Discovery versions of ourselves. And
That I kind of like it. Maybe we could find our mirror universe selves.
oh, those guys were jerks, so hopefully they never come back. They might return someday, who knows.
Fatheree, Kirk didn't give up on Mirror Spock, and I won't give up on Mirror Me and Fatheree.
There you go. Yeah, maybe they'll find redemption someday. We'll see. That story is yet to be told. So while Disco ends, Tex-Trek goes on.
That's right. And Star Trek goes on. So yeah.
But if you are interested in those watch parties, please consider joining the Patreon. You can come in at whatever tier, as little as $2 a month. If you can afford to be more generous, there's additional perks as well. But $2 a month will get you into those watch parties. But yeah, Dave, let's get into life itself. That's a big subject, isn't it? That sounds like we're about to sit down and have like a big philosophical conversation.
It's bold. It's a bold title, but it also is like it's kind of nicely taken right from as a very specific line of dialogue right from the episode.
Yeah, it was also something that was said in last week's episode and something that was said in the TNG episode of The Chase. So
I did not know that.
People keep using those words, life and itself, next to each other. I believe it's my turn to do the first opening statement. Is that right?
I lost track, but I think that is correct, Fatheree. And even if it's not, you lead us off. You captain this ship.
All right. Well, let me first quickly recap it by reading the official synopsis, and then I'll kind of expand on that with spoilers. But the official synopsis reads, trapped inside a mysterious alien portal that defies familiar rules of time, space, and gravity, Captain Burnham must fight Moll and the environment itself in order to locate the Progenitors' technology and secure it for the Federation. Meanwhile, Book puts himself in harm's way to help Burnham survive, and Rayner leads the U.S.S. Discovery in an epic winner-takes-all battle against Breen forces. That was a really colorful synopsis. They had some fun, interesting language in there. You know, winner-takes-all battle. I like that.
Father, I think I like to jot down in my notes a synopsis, and usually sometimes I'll just take what they've written on Paramount Plus. Here is what I wrote from Paramount Plus. Burnham and her crew fight for the future of the Federation. That's it.
Well, that's the shorter version. This is the one that they give to the in the press release every week.
That is the superior one in this case. Yes.
But yeah, Moll and Burnham have a weird gravity-defying battle that eventually results in Burnham activating the progenitor tech and learning that she has the ability to create life, but not bring back the dead. So Locke is staying dead. Burnham decides no one needs that technology. Rayner sends some Breen to the other side of the galaxy, up against the very edge, up against the wall of the galactic barrier, and Voyagers them.
Yeah.
And then in the end, people do get married. There are multiple weddings, although one happens at some point off screen. We don't know when or see it, but we see the results. And everyone lives happily ever after, except arguably Zora doesn't. But yeah, that's pretty much our finale. That's the end of Discovery, or at least the end so far, unless they make some reunion movie because Kovic calls everyone back.
The structure of the new scenes reminded me more than a little bit of the ending of Return of the King, with its kind of many farewells and happy scenes mixed with bittersweet scenes and things like that. And to me, that was largely a good thing. Well, of course, we'll talk about it. But yeah,
I feel like people say that all the time, though. I feel like that's just like a shorthand for whenever like there's a bunch of... Because like a shitload of stuff ends like Return of the King style. I feel like every year I hear like 2 or 3 times someone says like it had like a Return of the King style ending. There's like a whole bunch of stuff.
This visually looked like it because the wedding had that kind of lush...
It did have a very Lord of the Rings look. Yeah, it was very Rivendell.
It also reminded me the other pop cultural reference that I've mentioned a few times, I think, on this show is Fast and Furious movies tend to end with a lot of, like, usually they sit down to eat somewhere, everybody cracks wise, they reminisce. There's a little bit of comings and goings, and they maybe a little sadness here and there for some departed person. But usually, it's a series of good things. More so than with Lord of the Rings. They're very upbeat, and this actually felt a little bit more like that kind of upbeat. But there's some melancholy in it too. We'll talk about that.
For my broad impressions, just kind of my opening statement take on it before we get into the episode breakdown. I liked the episode. I think it's adequate. I'm satisfied as far as, an episode, as far as a finale, as far as a series finale, a season finale, all of that stuff. It did the bare minimum or greater than that I needed. But I was perhaps slightly underwhelmed. I think they largely played things very safe with where everything ended, which I'm kind of okay with. But there were a few little things here or there that bothered me. A lot of little things, like some real trivial stuff, but they kind of add up. When they're having the big battle with the Breen, and they're like, oh, we can do this really cool, crazy trick. I know this is gonna sound nuts, but what if we set the plasma field on fire? It's okay, that's kind of been done in Trek before, Tilly. Or the big reveal of the final puzzle, and it's just these little triangles you have to slide around. Or Tahal and her big bad fleet that they hyped up was very underwhelming. But then there was one thing that I really dislike. I don't want to say hated, because I try to reserve that for when I really mean it. So I don't know if I can say that just yet. I have to think on it. But there was one thing that I really, really disliked, at least. However, there was a ton that I loved, and I found a lot of beauty in the themes of the episode that largely embody the story of season 5 and also the entire show of Star Trek Discovery from beginning to end. Dave, we were talking about how we've been covering this show since it started, since before it started. And I keep talking lately about the mirror thematics in Discovery, but it's something that I mentioned way back in season 1. Mm-hmm. It was a big part of the show then, with Burnham having to become the mutineer, then the convict, and eventually find forgiveness and acceptance. But the show has always had this element of self-reflection and looking at the face in the mirror. And that's the place, the only place actually in the entire universe where you can find the meaning of life itself, of what Douglas Adams, to quote Douglas Adams, called life, the universe, and everything in it. I instead of quoting Douglas Adams, I want to quote Stanley Kubrick, who Dave, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this. We've discussed this quote before, but the short version, I won't read the entire thing. But I think this came from an interview with Playboy magazine, but Stanley Kubrick said, "The most terrifying fact about the universe is not that it is hostile, but that it is indifferent. But if we can come to terms with this indifference and accept the challenges of life within the boundaries of death, however mutable man may be able to make them, our existence as a species can have a genuine meaning and fulfillment. However vast the darkness, we must supply our own light." And basically what Kubrick meant was that you have to find, the meaning of life, whatever is the most meaningful thing to you. That's something that's going to be up to you to find for yourself.
That's a pretty good off-the-cuff quote that he gave in a random interview.
He was a smart dude.
I'm sure he'd been thinking about it. It wasn't the first time he'd ever had this discussion. But yeah, that's really good. I like that, Father.
Read the larger quote, and it's he uses a lot of a lot of language where I'm just thinking man, this guy had a lot going on in his brain. It's almost like Nicholas Meyer, one of our Star Trek filmmakers. Nicholas Meyer is a really smart dude. If read his autobiography, and you're just damn, this guy has serious thoughts in his mind, But yeah, I like that as kind of a theme for the show, that the biggest discovery, that's the thing about Star Trek Discovery, the greatest discovery, actually, even if you can spore jump around the entire galaxy, it's going to be something that you find within yourself. So that's something that Burnham decides, and something that, they kind of reiterate, they kind of spell it out there at the end with that coda sequence at the end. But I love that the show does work as a singular, work of art, of entertainment, however you want to describe a television show. But it does have by a combination, I think, of intent and accident, it does kind of have like this beautiful theme to it, or at least I was able to read it that way. But we'll discuss the episode more in the episode breakdown in a moment. But Dave, what about your opening thoughts? Tell us your general impressions with this series finale.
Fatheree, I'll have to. I'm still kind of turning over, by the way, that Progenitors, the message. There's a certain element that I found anticlimactic about it too, but I do like that. For a show, just to briefly address what you were saying, for a show that has built itself on single seasons, structures that build upon each other, not a bunch of standalone episodes, having a thematic feels a little bit like maybe more vital to it, like where you're going to just get so many different mixed stories in a format like Strange New Worlds. So yeah, I do like that with some happenstance and some no doubt intent that they've arrived at that. I think that's pretty cool. Now, to get to my specific reaction to it, I'm going to bring up, we've talked about Lord of the Rings and Fast and Furious. I also will occasionally bring up the show Lost. This is a show that I liked. It's divisive, I know, but ultimately I did like it a lot. And there's a parallel for me in the final seasons of Discovery and Lost, because Lost was a series that I really loved, but when I found it frustrating, it was very frustrating to me. And I had the same thing with Discovery. In many a past episode I've found, or past, podcast, we talked about my issues with it. In both of the cases of these shows, by the time we get to the final season of the series, I'd pretty much made my peace. I'd finally gotten there. I could really enjoy them on their own merits. I could look past the things that I'm not big on, because I knew that's who it is. That's its identity at this point. And what I found is that in both finales, I enjoyed this emotional journey that the characters went on, even if the raw plot of it had some disappointments and kind of, sometimes I think a little bit shallow answers, more than I'd like. So yeah, I was actually pretty much there for it. The iffy stuff, like some of the full reveals of the Progenitors, the weirdly unrevealed future of the Breen, that didn't hold me back too much. I was liking that visual splendor of the Progenitors lab, or Burnham's hurricane leap. I loved Rayner finding that he had it in him to be merciful, and there were some unexpected plot points too, even like Locke's fate being permanent, or that they didn't do that contrivance we were worried about Fatheree of Book becoming first officer. Thank God.
Yeah.
And so I really felt like the outro stuff really got me in the feels. All the end sequence new stuff had left me with a good feeling of melancholy. I was reminded, as with the Lost finale, I really love this crew of people. And when the older Burnham is reflecting on them, and we're invited, obviously, to do so too, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss all of these people. I knew I would, and I really felt that they're maybe even a little bit for non. But I also take heart, because I know that some of these guys are going to make it to Starfleet Academy and other future projects, no doubt. But yeah, here we are at the end of the season-long quest, and at the end of Burnham's entire series-long quest, and I felt pretty happy and content with it. It was. It would have been nice maybe if it had exceeded my expectations, but I was there for what it delivered, and I was happy with what it delivered.
Well, let's get into the episode breakdown, starting at the very beginning, the opening, when Burnham goes through the portal and encounters the interesting environment of Dave, you just called it the Progenitor Lab. I kind of like that shorthand
they said,
for it.
or that's one of the things Burnham thought it might be, or one of her possible descriptions of it. And so in my notes I called it that.
But they did like a pretty good job creating this, visually stunning place, and the weird gravity effects and like the different environments through like the different portals and stuff. They sometimes I kind of worry about them writing themselves in a corner when it's like, okay, like you're promising like this big cool progenitor tech stuff, you're really gonna have to show something cool. But as I keep saying throughout season 5, they've impressed me with their progenitor storyline, with the treasure hunt, with the different trials that they've come up. I mean, I think Whistle Speak was a bit of a very dry episode that could have used some more compelling plot, but beyond that, a lot of the choices they've made with the stuff going into this episode, I really approve of. And then the presentation of this, it did not let me down. I talked about some things underwhelmed me, but I actually think like a lot of the, like when that first planet she goes to, the really dark planet with the bad storm weather, like that immediately felt like, oh, what, like a terrible environment. It made me wish like, oh, I wish I was watching this in like a theater with like really good speakers and stuff, because it seems like such like a intense environment,
Yeah, I liked the progenitor lab too. We've become familiar with the use of the technology, how they do visuals in the AR wall era and stuff like that. But I thought this was like a really neat idea. It felt suitably big, that almost infinity room kind of vibe to it. It looked cool. There was like, it was a good color palette. All the variety of stuff in there.
The color palette was
cool.
Was good because they made like every planet we go to like kind of have like its own, like we have like a black planet, a pink planet, a yellow planet. They kind of like all had, as long as you don't do, I guess, like blue or green, the colors of art, we got like blue ocean and green land. As long as you don't do those, it's going to look pretty alien.
On one level, I'm always, I was thinking a little bit like, I wish these looked less like Earth areas with, like modified colors, and that, there was weird, snakes flying through the air and weird, strange plant life or all sorts of weird stuff like that. But what they needed was for them to be distinct, sometimes dangerous, and clearly alien worlds, and not for everyone for us to pause and look at a bunch of detail in it. So I think they actually made the right choices, both probably for their budget on one level, but also for storytelling that they needed. It was kind of an action-adventure landscape. It wasn't meant to be, let's hang around on every one of these planets.
Yeah, I think they looked pretty alien, so
They did. I just I want more alien.
I liked her jump she had to time with when the wind was blowing. That made me think of like I feel like I've done that in several video games. Maybe I like a lot of like platforming games. Like I like I love the Mario Brothers game. I like games where I have to like jump on stuff that's hard to jump onto. So
yeah, it's a very specific subgenre, but I'm with you there. I like Mario stuff. I like platformers like Tomb Raider.
Yeah, that's a pretty common genre.
Yeah. I thought that was actually an incredibly cool sequence, the way they filmed it. Good use of slow-mo. That's a perfect place to do slow motion, because it looked like she was doing some goddamn Bionic Man superhero shit.
Yeah, I think Tundi had some fun shooting like some of that stuff in slow-mo, but I thought it looked also like really like dangerous when you see like a Breen with his skull smashed in. I thought that he just fell off of the bridge, but apparently like Moll killed him to take his gun. So I don't know. We've talked about how like Moll's not really like that murderous, but I guess like at this point, if she's in like scary hell planet, she'll murk a dude to take his gun, I guess.
And not just Hell Planet, but she's also this close to her goal. Like she's right there, and clearly the short-lived camaraderie with like the Breen, like the Breen workers of the world unite. That seemed to go out the window. I
think that guy must have betrayed her. I was like, you were gonna lead us to resurrect the Scion, and instead all you did was like get me stuck here. Like I'm tired of you filthy human. And I think it might have been something like that. But
that is what we have mostly seen of them. So I think I'm not holding that too much against her.
When Moll encounters Michael and she shoots that Breen to save her, it made me feel sorry for that dude, because I'm thinking like that guy saw Michael do the platforming to time his jump with the wind, and he basically like pulled off the same thing to get up there. And then I was like, good for you, Breen dude. And then he immediately gets shot.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're an NPC.
And it also seemed odd to me. I like the programmable matter bracelets that they have where they can just like make guns and make dermal regenerators and whatever, but it did seem odd to me when Moll had her Breen phaser, disruptor, or whatever aimed at Michael, and Michael materialized that dermal regenerator. It's like, how did Moll know that was going to be a dermal regenerator? Like, why would you not shoot? Why would you not stun your opponent as soon as you saw something glow in their hand from their bracelet thing?
The harsh answer, Father, is of course because she read the script. But yeah, that's a little dodgy. I guess you could say she was working towards that trust, at least temporary trust of Burnham. So.
And then it was, I know at one point, like, Moll betrays Burnham and, like, knocks her on the head. And when we were watching that, I know some people were like, no, Moll, don't do it. Or something, like, we could kind of see it coming the first time we watched this episode. Mm-hmm. But it's, to me, like, that choice made more sense than Michael's choice to start fighting Moll. Like Moll or Burnham just like starts fighting Moll for from Moll's perspective, I guess, like, apparently no reason. Moll was like arguing about like no, I'm gonna use the Breen to get lock back, and Burnham saying like no, I've seen the future where the Breen get their hands on this tech and it's bad, and then eventually, like, Michael's just like, well, I can't let that happen. And she just starts kicking Moll and starts fighting her. And then later is like, no, Moll, you don't have to do this. I lost someone important to me one time, too. So it's like, if I was Moll, I wouldn't be too trustworthy of Michael Burnham. But they do have, like, a cool zero-G fight, even though it kind of, like, doesn't make sense to me the way that they handled this. I think they wanted to have their big fight, like, later in the script, so they have them like get along a little bit, and then they wait till like, okay, now we need to like up the energy in the episode, a few minutes later. So we'll have like the big fight where they're going through to like the pink tree planet and the fiery hell planet and like all of that. Like, we're gonna like wait for that to be like a few minutes later. So let's like have them get along for a little bit and then fight for a little bit and then get along again. It felt like the character is kind of making like some odd choices to show off the visual set piece at the right moment in the script.
They wanted that action adventure element, and so they had some like a little Matrix, Neo, Agent Smith fighting going on. But I did,
which
think
was
all
cool.
Of that, I thought it all looked really good. Looked damn good.
Yeah, it looked great.
Say, I get Burnham at that, at least for a time, being like, I gotta just drop this chick. She is so laser focused. I sort of wish there had been a conversation where she just had said something like Moll, there's this humanity in you where you are so devoted to this person for love, and I respect that, and that's beautiful. But like, I can't believe that you would sacrifice tens of thousands of lives, maybe millions of lives, in the ensuing Breen takeover of the galaxy, for that. You can't want that. Nobody could possibly want that. I wish that they had that. I wish there was a little more talky talk sometimes. This was a big fighty fight, actiony action season, but I for the finale, I somewhat wish there were a few longer conversations.
I liked the fight though. I think all of the action looked great, and I just my only problems are with some of Michael's choices before and after when she was, because it just seemed odd to be like, no, I'm just gonna start fighting you, and then like, oh, I'm gonna talk you out of fighting. It's like, you're the one who started the fight.
Well, Father, they did look at the script, and the script says they have to fight again.
So. But the writers could have not written that.
No, I know.
That's the mistake I'm criticizing. Not the characters, but the writers.
I agree with you. It's just kind of funny that, I think that, yeah, they were doing it because they wanted to honestly have an action sequence, though, that is to say the writers and the and all that. But yes, a little shaky. It falls within the action adventure sort of tropes, but could it have been done more seamlessly? 100%, yes. Very often a criticism I have of Discovery every single season.
But then after they fight on the pink tree planet and the hellscape planet, they eventually find the controls on the sunflower the sunflower planet. I like the giant yellow flowers. It made me think of Ninja Turtles 2. Starring Vanilla Ice. But there's some like giant
Sure.
yellow flowers that grow in that movie from the same mutagen that mutated the turtles. Ninja
Okay.
Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Now you know what the
Oh,
secret
that's not
is.
it's the third one that's the time travel one. Got
The
it.
third one's where they go back in time
Turtles in time.
and they didn't. No, that was the video game.
Son of a bitch.
But the I mean, no, never mind. I'm not going to go on a Ninja Turtles tangent. Also owned by Paramount, though.
Well, bring the crossover on.
I didn't see the reveal of the final puzzle or whatever. Like, I didn't see that coming. I saw some people online saying like, "Oh, it's so obvious. You're supposed to make a negative space triangle with all the triangles." But I mean, like, hell, I didn't know that. If I would have done the obvious thing that Moll did, I was like, "Oh, I'll just put all these things together in one big triangle."
Yeah, I think that has to do with a certain way that people sort of do spatial thinking and abstract thinking. I wasn't particularly honestly, I wasn't trying to put it together. I was just watching to see what story are they going to tell with this. I did think that that is a place where I thought it sort of fell down because every other Burnham says like everything we've been doing is built to this. Well, all those previous puzzles were tests of morality and things like that. And this one is really kind of a visual word, like a visual design puzzle, kind of a mathy puzzle, and that actually doesn't quite fit with all the puzzles that they've been seeing. But it does sort of symbolize as a concept because you can't always show in a book you can kind of get into a detailed
Right.
physics puzzle or something like that. On a show you need something that shows that Burnham is better at abstract thinking than Moll is, and she's got a clearer head. Moll is like, I need to get to this thing right fucking now, and she's like, start with the triangle. Let's do that first. And it nearly kills her. And whereas Burnham was able to, she can see the negative space. She can see kind of in a deeper way than that. Just like Khan thinks in 2 dimensions or tends towards 2-dimensional thinking, and Kirk doesn't. So as an abstraction, I do think it kind of works.
What was obvious to me was in Star Trek Prodigy, when Hologram Janeway made the kids on Prodigy do the riddle in the holodeck, where it's like, okay, you have to take a fox and a chicken and a bag of grain across with this boat, but you can only do 2 at a time or whatever it is. Like that one, like I knew pretty quickly, like how to figure it out. But this one, like it never occurred. The negative space thing did not occur to me.
I feel like I've never been particularly good with those, but like I kind of find it sort of satisfying to poke at them and try and figure them out. I think that's kind of cool. And of course, the whole reason on Prodigy, they just wanted to show sort of how they botch it up.
I did like the one thing that could distract Michael from what was, arguably the most important thing in the universe at that moment. But it was Book, because that's how love works. That is the one thing that would have taken away her attention and made her lower her guard, and you can't do that around Moll. She's if you give Moll an opportunity to break bad, I guess that's what she's gonna do.
I feel like Fatheree later on, Kovich is gonna come in and she's gonna be like handcuffed to the bed or whatever, and he's gonna be proposing the thing to her or whatever his thing is, and she's gonna just sneak out and just clock Kovich. He's gonna get his ass knocked out.
I actually think he's gonna have her. He's the one character who would have her under control.
Probably. Well, it also occurred to me that since the progenitors have the limitation of they cannot revive the dead, but a little bit of time travel stuff, which is very much up his alley, could take her back to like Locke exactly as he was right before he died, or in some way, shape, or form. I think he could get her there.
Oh yeah,
So-
yeah. That's yeah. If she finds out about the time travel, I don't know. That'd be a thing. Like, how do you convince her not to go renegade then?
I think. Well, that would be interesting, and that's Kovich's task, and he's pretty good at motivating people, and he's tricky when he wants to be and sincere when he wants to be, and I think he might say, like, I think he might almost just be upfront and say, like, I would like to try and use our tech to help you, fulfill something that you want. I want something, and I want to know if you'll be willing to help me to do it. I'm smart, and you're not going to be, you're not going to knock me in the back of the head, but I want, that sort of wiliness that you've got. Anyway, I hope that we do see them at some point. It'd be cool if, like, some mission in the middle of Starfleet Academy touched on whatever it is that they're doing. That's a far flung possibility, but would I be happy with it? Yes.
Well, thank you, Matthew Averett, for the generous $5 super chat in the live audience. Matthew says, "Have a happy weekend, Tex-Trek family." So, you too, Matthew. Dave, you talked about the rules for like this final test, being a bit different, of like having to arrange the triangles. But I guess this is actually, it wasn't a test created by the scientists. This was the controls that they found when they got there, and everything else was something that they designed themselves. So I guess that part of it does make sense. And I assume that the scientist who died, who they find they did what Picard did to Kirk at the end of Generations. Let's just stack a bunch of rocks on the corpse, I guess, and just leave it here. We'll just stack some rocks on it. But I guess they made the same mistake as Moll and didn't deactivate. If you do the triangles incorrectly, it doesn't turn on the safety mechanism. And if you do them the right way, like Burnham, you do get the safety mechanism on. So they learned the hard way about the negative space triangle.
I wasn't quite clear. Now, why do we think that they lost a person those centuries ago, but Moll only got kind of hurt, stunned?
I guess because Burnham pulled her off of it sooner than they did. Or
what was it?
Maybe she's made of sterner stuff than what, I don't know. Maybe it was like some weak science, some frail weak scientist who he couldn't take it. I mean, I'm serious. Like maybe was just like a young, healthy body that could survive it. I don't know.
Was it Janal who talked about that?
Yes, yeah. Janal's the one who said, it was really scary when we found it and someone died.
Yeah, they tried to interact with the technology and he died. Yeah, maybe so. Or maybe that, they tried to press farther than she did or something like that. And maybe she was at least in the ballpark. It's like, oh, triangle gets you a little shock, but if you try anything that's too out of bounds, then we'll just kill your ass.
He like stacked all of the triangles on top of each other to make like one really tall triangle, and then he just like dropped dead immediately. And they're like, well, don't try that.
Yeah, he made a Jenga tower and had to die for it.
Yeah, that's not what the progenitors wanted.
They have very specific puzzles.
Well, let's jump away from Burnham and Moll on the progenitor technology lab thing and talk about Saru and Non a little bit. They have the Pathway Drive shuttlecraft. We finally get to see that technology in action. Another thing that underwhelmed me a bit. Nothing major, just like a little thing, but
it seemed to still just be like they're in warp. Like it was faster than regular warp speed. Distances are so kind of arbitrary in Discovery and honestly throughout most of Trek, they were just, it might as well have been warp in some ways.
Annoying Critic in the live audience gives a $2 super chat and says, "I would be fried," so they don't have much faith in their ability to work the progenitor controls. But thank you so much, Annoying Critic. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I would be fried too, but I would try and do some kind of weird thing where I'm like connecting the triangles into 3-dimensional pyramids, but I'm like, can we use glue? Is it what's allowed?
Oh, the progenitors don't want glue on their controls. That's like putting whiteout on your monitor, That joke probably works. Like that's a joke we used to make in the 90s, and it's probably been so long ago that like the young people now haven't heard it.
It's gone.
We got Non back, though, and I thought that was good. I liked that Non showed up for the finale. They snuck everyone in for the most part, I guess.
Yeah.
Or all the people that made sense for Season 5.
Yeah, and, I guess I'm kind of neutral on Non to the end. I don't, hate her, but I rarely find scenes with her that I'm particularly into, so
Yeah, no, but she's just good at, like, whenever you need, like, a security person, like, you use Non. Whenever you need, like, the admiral boss, you use Vance. Whenever you need, like, the president lady, you use Rilix. So that's, like, she serves that niche. That's why they keep bringing her back. But, yeah, I'm never, like, too excited to see her either. But a lot of people are. A lot of people really like her. So I don't know if they...
I know that... Well, yeah. I don't know why, but...
If you're a Non-fan, tell us why.
Yeah, please do. What was I going to say? I know that there was reasons, meta context reasons why Woshikin and Detmer couldn't be there, but I would have so much rather had time with them, just as an example. But I philosophically, the broad concept, all the big players should be there. That should be the case. It's the theme of the whole show. Burnham talks about family, like Fast and the Furious ending later.
I did not like Primarch Tahal. All the stuff that y'all said about Rune when y'all are like, oh, I hate this like generic, boring, bland villain, and I was like, oh no, I think there's like this cool thing with Rune. But I am with y'all when it comes to Tahal. Like, at least give her a really cool helmet. Like, they should have gone to some, like, helmet designer and been like, hey, we want you to design, like, the coolest helmet in all of Star Trek. We want to have, like, the coolest looking Breen ever. Because all we're going to see of her is her helmet on screen for a few seconds. So make it really, really leave an impression. And it did not. And her fleet, I don't know. For some reason, like, I thought, like, maybe... her fleet would be comparable to a dreadnought. It would be like a lot of like little smaller ships. I just wanted it to be like a little something different from Primarch Rune. And it's like, oh, her fleet is just 3 dreadnoughts. It's just they took like the same dreadnought CGI model and just copy pasted 2 others next to it. And it's like, there you go, that's her fleet. That was underwhelming to me.
I could sense as I was watching it that she existed to give Saru his Corbomite maneuver moment.
Yeah, to give him his cool hero moment. It would have been cooler if she was a big menacing threat that he had that victory over.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even when they said Tahal did leave a scout ship behind, and I like that. I like that there was a little bit of a contingency there. It would have been kind of cool if they just made that sound cooler. Like Tahal might not be quite as manipulable as we thought. It looks like we've got a cloaked ship that's tracking us. That would have been kind of fun. There's little ways you could have made her more intimidating.
Thank you, Starfleet Sohel, in the live chat for that very generous $5 super chat. Sohel says, finale money for Tex-Trek to keep running. I'm really struck by Disco's contribution to Star Trek. It's immense when you really think about it.
Yeah, it's almost... I think we'll talk about this more when we do our sort of season wrap-up.
Yeah, let's come back next week.
Yeah, but there's a second level that this, the finale to Discovery works on, which is just a reminder of, like, everything that Discovery has done for the franchise, which is huge, They've straight up told us that it paved the path for all the other stuff we're liking right now, whether it's Lower Decks, Prodigy, Strange New Worlds, etc.
As underwhelmed as I was with Tahal and her fleet, I did enjoy Doug Jones's performance and action Saru giving that Kelpian bluff of, thank goodness for the season 5 Saru prosthetics, where I've talked about this before, but they used thinner latex on season 5, and Doug Jones's face is more expressive, and there's like a couple moments where it really shines, and like a lot of them are kind of like the romantic moments with Tarina, and then here when he had to put on the guise of Predator Saru.
Yeah, that was fun. I did enjoy that. And I liked that he revealed to Non, it kind of showed that he's doing a little bit of that 4D chess thing. It's like, oh, that initial thing where, Tahal was like, your offering is meaningless to me. And he reveals that he's like, oh, he actually used what he was saying to intuit where her secret bases are and use Starfleet intelligence. And so now he's going to pull off this big gambit about like shredding those bases.
And he mentioned that last week. He mentioned that the worlds near the Breen border were getting nervous, and so it kind of like justifies all that time he spent away this season, on those border worlds. It was actually doing good that paid off here when we get the successful Saru Gambit. And yeah, I guess that was kind of cool with like the scout ship, Tahal's scout ship. How like it wasn't. They made it not seem like super easy that Saru was able to talk her out of her
Right.
pursuit of whatever was going on near the black holes. So I do like that now more. I just wish that they would have had like some cooler visual presentation, because that's really all you get with the Breen. You know, if you're going to just make them these scary looking things that look cool but stay mysterious, then at least make them look cool and scary, and not the same thing that we've
Well,
seen a lot of.
the other thing is, I think you needed, even though this is easily leads to cliche too, is you need to see some collateral damage to remind us, oh, how bad the bad guys are. We need to see them take out another ship. It can't just be that they kill an underling or something like that. It's got to be that serious thing where it's like they'll kill innocents. They'll maybe a character we like might have been taken out by them. Rillick. No, I was just kidding. But but yeah, like I think we needed to know that their danger level a little bit more, and that's something that movies do. And sometimes I think they go way too far. Like, oh, this bad guy like slaughtered like 10,000 people, and now even if they beat him, that's horrible. That's terrible. So, but there's a balance to be found, and I think they should have leaned a little bit more into these guys mean business.
Well, let's talk about Rayner commanding Discovery at the black holes and kind of the cool space battle stuff we get.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of that stuff, although I wish that they had just dialed it back a little bit with the flamethrowers on the Discovery bridge. They were going
Yes.
crazy, but I mean it's your final episode, so why not just Tunde does like the biggest camera spin they've ever done in 5 seasons of the
Yes.
show, but like anyone.
It's almost like campy fun a little bit at that point. Like fucking yeah, fireballs are shooting again. um, and just a little bit of like, oh, we're gonna throw everything Discovery in here, including the kind of campy bits.
But I did like how, you did have like that big sense of urgency that there's like, okay, we have 60 minutes before Tahal gets over here. And then it's like, oh, there's that constant like escalation of the stakes. Like, oh no, now that Moll's turned on the controls, now we gotta move the portal away from the black hole. And, like Saru was able to talk Tahal out of her trip over here, but she sent a scout ship. And,
Father, initially for a little while I was kind of disappointed. I wanted Rayner to get some like badass old school moves, show what a clever strategist he was, and instead he seemed to be kind of like keep those fighters off of us, start taking them out one by one, slightly boring by the book stuff. And then when they did the Nebula thing, that was actually more cool for me for Reese. That was and it did look neat. But I was like, that's like you mentioned, that's something we've seen in Trek before. It was when he came up with the idea of the spore drive thing that I was
when he started
that's
thinking.
what I'd been waiting for.
That was when Rayner became a Discovery character. When he started
Yes.
he was like, wait a minute, like I need to act like the show that I'm in, and be like, okay, on this show we do like ridiculous shit, like saucer separate the ship and spore jump the Breen dreadnought instead of us.
Right, and you turn to the crew you trust, and they science the shit out of it in 3 minutes, and most of the time it pays off. Most of the time they're able to do it. I'm like, again, borderline slightly campy, but fun. I thought when he throws that out, and Tilly's like, no, 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 no. Well, maybe. You were talking. I think we were talking about how Stamets has had to roll with all of this stuff, and he was definitely right in the thick of it once again.
He was the one who was like, no, absolutely not, no way. Well, maybe.
Yeah. Honestly, as far as like kind of action moments in Discovery, which it did occur to me when they weren't like pew-pewing and firing at any of these things, I was like, how often have they ever fired their phasers or photons in anger and struck ships in traditional Star Trek-y kind of combat? I think it's like really, really infrequent. I know I'm possibly forgetting some stuff, but like I almost don't count when she's like tangling with Book and what's his name in the previous season. They're that scientist dude.
Book and Tarka.
Book and Tarka, yeah. But they don't do a lot of ship to ship combat. I think that's actually honestly too.
Well, they did that was mainly season 1 during the Klingon War. It was like nonstop ship to ship combat. So
it reminds me in a good way of the innovative comic book writer Grant Morrison when he did a reinvention of Wonder Woman at one point. He really wanted to portray her as a pacifist.
Yeah, that's really good.
He did this thing called Wonder Woman Earth 1. And he portrayed her as a pacifist hero. And he's like, I'm not going to have scenes where she fist fights with people. It's just not going to be a thing. And so all of his stuff, nice, Fatheree. All of the stuff in there is her outthinking, sometimes using her physicality and the lasso and all this other stuff. But she generally doesn't slug it out with anybody at all in 3 volumes of that. And I think Discovery kind of...
She does have some fights, but they're normally so fast. This is one punch from her.
Look again, Fatheree. I checked into it, and there's not traditional fights. She might move a tank out of the way, but she's not punching anybody or doing the physical combat. I bet there's not a single punch thrown from her.
At the end of volume 2, on the last page, isn't there?
We'll double check this off, Mike. But I don't recall any. In any case, it is so much less than you would find in most superhero and action adventure stories. And it's the same for Discovery. And I think that's to its credit. It shows that they wanted to get away from the, let's solve this with the fucking punch up. And I think that's pretty cool. That said, I also think that spore driving the Dreadnought was the coolest move that they've ever done with the ship. I loved how it looked, seeing the big turnaround spin and even anticipating it.
It was so cool how the scout ship, how when the scout ship gets caught up in that and it starts spinning on its own axis. Yeah. But then and it's trying to get away. It looks like it's struggling to get away and resisting to spin on its own axis. But then it also starts spinning around the Dreadnought also. So it's spinning on 2 different axes. And it just, I don't know, that made it look I didn't notice that the first time I watched, but then the second or third time I noticed, and I was like, holy hell, that is so cool.
I now want to go and see it again. But yeah, and for me, the sheer bigness of the Dreadnought and knowing that it was about to get spun.
And Rayner screaming, and how it was at the same time they time it with the speech that the progenitor is giving Michael about finding meaning and stuff, and all of that was, and I loved Rayner's speech to the crew, his very short inspirational speech when he's just we're about to take a hell of a risk. If it doesn't work out, well, good crew. I appreciate the trust. It's I like that. It's just that's all he had to say was good crew. But I mean, that says it all. It's just that was the thing that was the most meaningful thing to him was to be the leader of that crew and to tell them that they were doing a good job.
When you're very sparing with the compliments, and he's very sparing with the compliments, you can say a lot with a little.
Yeah, with the people that just heap praise on everything all the time, this sounds kind of mean, but I kind of start to ignore them after when they're just oh yeah, you did such a good job, that was great, that was fantastic. But I was you say that about everything though. I kind of just ignore it at this point.
It's the warm and fuzzy that he had to kind of Cobra Kai criticize, and we had to kind of be there was a part of me that's just like Johnny from Cobra Kai. Discovery could use a little of that self-awareness. It's kind of cool that in the last season of the show they acknowledged it a little bit, or at least poked a little bit of fun with at themselves by having this character voiced at.
Well, that's another, it's the self-reflection thing, it's the show taking a look at itself.
That's true.
So anything we say, I can spin into oh, that's part of my mirror thematic.
Father, even the twin poles that they had to make to create the spore effect is another binary.
Yeah, it's just like we began with binary stars and we end with binary black holes, and we can go all day with this stuff. But...
You have the healthy love of Book and Burnham, and the sort of more toxic love of Locke and Moll, willing to throw away the galaxy for it.
Yeah, the pairing of Michael and Rayner in season 5 It mirrors Rayner and Burnham in season 1 of like the captain of the Discovery, like saying like, "Oh, you can find redemption here on my crew," but it's you get like the mirror image of it where like, oh, it was the grumpy old white dude inviting Michael onto the ship, and then now it's like Michael inviting the grumpy old white dude onto the ship. Yeah. It's like yeah, like there's a lot of the stuff. Like I don't know how much of it the writers meant to do. I think some of it was coincidence, but it's certainly there now. So you can't no one can take that away from me. It's there, damn it.
That's right. Hey, we humans are good at pattern recognition.
Yeah.
When they invite you to look for it, which I think they do on shows like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What did you think about the Culber and book stuff of having to do the shuttle tractor of the portal? And I don't know. It's I guess it's up to interpretation of the audience member, but possible divine intervention.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to go with the divine intervention interpretation, but this is one of those where I wish I would like to have this somewhat longer conversation that would be a little bit more serious. And I thought this was a little shallow. I like those characters together. You know, I liked seeing them together. So it's not like the scene felt like worthless or anything to me. But I was just like, you know, I didn't feel like we really arrived at a deeper understanding of things than had been brought up when he talked about, even when he talked to Stamets about, or maybe Tilly, like 4 or 5 episodes ago, and she says, you know, didn't she observe that it sounds like he was like enjoying the mystery, and he was like, oh yeah, and he's like, I don't know why that would be, you know, or he's like, and then that's what he arrives at here is a certain sense of mystery that he's able to sit with and be happy with. But I do think, you know, that sort of fits that they're not going to put the sort of the power of God in the hands of the Discovery crew, and he can sort of bask in the awe-inspiring closeness that he felt to that. But that's, you know, that's interesting to him. Jill in the comments mentions that she learned the term woo-woo from this show, memorably used by Jet Reno a few episodes back. It made me sound like a woo-woo asshole. This scene was slightly woo-woo.
Well, I like the moral of the story, I guess, that like you're not gonna your beliefs or faiths or whatever, like they're not gonna give you like the be all end all final answer. So if that's the origin of your pursuit, you're probably gonna be disappointed. And
right, it fits in with that broader perspective of you must create meaning within, you know, what does that mean to you? What does the mystery mean to you? Not will I get the final answer as a printout from God that tells me what the meaning of life is?
And it also reflects something that happens in real life. You know, sometimes like weird coincidental things happen, and like, oh, that's so strange. Why did I have like this one memory from Janal? You know, why this one thing and not anything else? And you know, some people look at that, and you know, when I might look at that as a skeptic, and I see something like, well, I guess we just don't know. It's just unexplained. But other people look at it and they see like, no, I look at that and I see, you know, a greater power or what have you. So I guess if you want to look at this and see that, I mean, it's an option there for interpretation.
I think I would say that there's more of Janal than he thinks there is bouncing around in him.
Yeah, that's what I think. I would be like, well, Culber, you're a cool dude.
Upon the really relevant thing.
I would be like, Culber, you're a cool dude. I think you might be a little deluded on this, but I believe like what you're feeling feels real to you, and that's, you know, that's good enough. That's good enough for me.
You know, Discovery has had a thematic running from very early on about trust too, and when somebody feels very strongly that they can accomplish something, that they are the right person for it, you trust in them. What do you call it? Rayner trusted Book to go on this. Stamets trusted his husband to go on this. There were a lot of those moments.
They had a good goodbye moment too. I thought they had like a sweet moment when they're like injecting Book and Culber with the radiation stuff, and some good techno babble too. Like explain like, oh, we can juice the shields and give you like some anti-radiation. Like they were like really trying to like avoid things that we were going to be nitpicking in their finales. So
Anthony Rapp, I think, is casually really good at both handling technobabble.
Yeah,
And
that's why they
showing
give him all the technobabble die. He's like
Yep.
the LeVar Burton of the show. It's like, okay,
He
anything that's
is.
hard to say, give it to Anthony.
But I also think that he shows how a person who can play detached, he can be kind of caught up in the science and stuff, how he can come down from that moment and have these kind of real moments of connection, whether it's with Adira or it's with Culber, and it feels real. Like when he does that, I'm like, oh yeah, I believe this guy. I feel it. So Anthony Rapp has been, I think, kind of quietly killing it 5 seasons.
Yeah, I've been thinking something similarly. I guess because we're coming up on the end of we're at the end of the show. We're past it. It's gone. It's that's the first time I've referred to Discovery in the past tense. I guess it's all not to be too grim, but it's kind of like when someone passes away, and it's like the first moment you refer to them in the past tense. It's kind of a big deal. That's like how Discovery is to me now, I guess. But Anthony Rapp has been consistently great on this show, and it does feel like he had less to do in season 5. I like the moral of his arc that kind of culminates with Adira at the near the end, but I do kind of regret not getting more out of him. I largely love how season 5 shaped out to be, but I do regret they couldn't have found more room for more Stamets.
Yeah, I can back that comment.
I don't know if you have anything else to say on the Breen battle stuff before we talk about Burnham solving the puzzle and meeting her creator.
Let's see. I think the only thing I was going to mention about Stamets, I just was looking at my notes, and I was like, Stamets did get to do one last spore jump. I think. Were they showing him doing that when?
It didn't show him in the chamber, but yeah, he would have had to have been in there.
No, there was some.
Oh, was there a shot of it? Okay, yeah, there might have been. I knew he was like getting in there when he was like yelling and stuff.
One last time, yeah.
And it was like they saved the saucer separation for that to make it like I don't know. That was I didn't think you could do something cool with the saucer separation, but apparently you can. I was like, okay, the ship flies apart into 2. Been there, done that. Not exactly a compelling thing. But I guess it is when you're not expecting it.
But then they flip an entire mega ship with it, and I was like, that's the shit.
Yeah,
but no, I don't think I have anything else about that sequence.
Cool. Well, then let's move on to Burnham having that conversation with the progenitor when she removes Moll from doing the wrong thing with the triangles, does the right thing with the triangles, and then meets a progenitor not played by the founder lady, like the one in TNG. Because apparently that actress is in her 90s now and hasn't worked in over a decade, so I think they weren't going to get her. But
probably not.
I like this other person. I kind of had a hard time understanding their dialogue when I watched this without captions on, but for the most part, I thought that that stuff worked. It felt like big enough and mysterious enough that they didn't like diminish the progenitors. Even learning that they didn't even like build all this stuff. I like that. I guess I wanted like the technology to be even more grandiose and mysterious than the people using it, because I really liked that idea of like it was even like beyond them.
Yeah, I was initially kind of like, well, that's not quite the super cool wheels within wheels reveal that I wanted, or just like super awesome technology that I couldn't even conceive of. It was kind of interesting to find out that they were just stewards too. Although, does that jibe with the chase? I did just rewatch it, but I can't remember. I thought they basically were talking like it was their tech. But they
don't talk about the technology, do they? They just say like we just scattered DNA like all over to make like a bunch. We just wanted it to be like a bunch of different races instead of like everyone evolving to look like us. We wanted y'all all to look like something different.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They kind of talk about it in an abstract way where you can insert this new knowledge in there, and it does work, I guess. You know what I think my favorite thing, and I do like it sort of the more I thought about it, because I kind of like the bigness of sometimes the 10C or the progenitors or those big things that can be beyond us and we can be okay with it. I have always thought that the notion that whether you are like a very spiritual person or middling spiritual person or a completely non-spiritual person, the idea that that we are going to have some sort of spelled out reason for everything is almost trite. Like, why would you
Yeah.
think that there's like one sentence or something that, beyond like something like be kind to people, like Kurt Vonnegut says, that's like that's the that's what the answer is.
Yeah,
So
it's a ridiculous pursuit in and of itself. That, like,
right.
I opened the show talking about Douglas Adams, and if you read Hitchhiker's
Right.
Guide, what he jokingly is like, okay, if these big smart people built a computer that could actually figure out the answer to life, the universe, and everything in it, it would be something totally arbitrary, like the number 42 or something like
Right.
that. Like what do you actually want as the
Right.
answer to that?
It's gonna be silly.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing I liked about this scene is that the progenitor was not like, usually when these things happen, there's like, well, you must make a choice now, and that did happen, but there was also you got time. We're not going anywhere. This is gonna be around. So Burnham ends up making that choice, but I kind of like that. It felt very zen, that sort of sense of like time kind of holds still here, and you can come and learn here at your pace. You can take some time to think about it. I kind of just liked how gentle and, in its way, encouraging and open minded they seem to be.
As much as I praised, like the urgency, everything, in this episode going on of Saru having a ticking clock and Rayner not having much time and all of that stuff, I do really like this choice. I didn't even realize it until talking to you right now, Dave. But the fact that Burnham basically has unlimited time to think about this and weigh this decision and make this choice, that does make it like that much powerful. Because like this wasn't something that she did under any duress. This is something that she concluded was the correct thing to do. So I do like that.
Burnham does tend to make decisions quickly.
And I love that the Betazoid doctor, Dr. Derek's, went through this and was like, okay, the Minion War is going on right now. We clearly don't want this technology in play. Let's design a test for like the best of the galaxy. You got to be like a really good person. We'll all come up with our criteria of what that means. And like someone will pass this test someday, and then they might decide, what to do here. I like that the person who passed that test, and I think this might be a little controversial with some people, but I like that the one who passed that was a human. If Star Trek is supposed to be like a story about the potential of humanity, I kind of think of humans as the main characters of Star Trek. That's why I think it's like so important that it shows like the potential of humanity. I'm okay with like humans being like, one of the most crucial races of the Federation. And there's, a shitload of humans in Starfleet because one, it's a lot easier to cast actors that look human, but two, it's just like, it's just like humans are just like, proactively like signing up for Starfleet. That's just like, the humans contribute a lot to Federation society. I love that. And I liked that, it was a human, a future human, this Michael Burnham character in the 32nd century who is able to be the best of humanity and prove herself to be the galaxy's super being who earned this right to make this choice. I know like a lot of people kind of hate that. It's like, oh my God, the show is literally telling us like Michael Burnham is the most important person in the galaxy right now. But I mean, that is the story. The writers kind of took that complaint a lot of people throw around on the internet, like, why does Michael Burnham always have to be like the center of the galaxy? But they kind of made like an entire season of like, okay, we're gonna have her like run the gauntlet to prove like she's the most qualified person in the galaxy to decide like the future fate of life in this galaxy.
That's Picard was that person to Q. Q predicated so much on Picard's depth and humanity and stuff like that. I don't think people should complain, is I guess what I'm saying, because a lot of Star Trek people have at their times been very centered as the hero, as the big hero, and so yeah, Fatheree, I figure since a human created Star Trek as a concept, a human can be that important to it. And also, since humans are tied through that sort of to all these other races, you can argue that it actually isn't so different from any other race because we all
we're all related. We're all descendants of the progenitors.
Everybody's a human. Everybody's a human, or we're
but
all.
I always say that that's everyone's human in Star Trek.
But yes, it's an interesting kind of bit of thought about the IDIC concept.
I love how they use that. Yeah, I love like the IDIC thing. I love that that was like the progenitors figured it out. Like, oh, we should just make like a bunch of different individual cultures, species, society, whatever, civilizations, whatever, and then they can cook on their separate planets, and then they'll go out into space and intermingle and create like this big, beautiful tapestry of infinite diversity and infinite combinations. It really does like all come full circle.
Yeah, it's suggestive that more than anything, it fulfills what that frequently seen quote from Roddenberry that I can only butcher right at the moment, where the idea that we would not only accept differences, but we would take a special delight in them between us. Geek Filter, Aaron is saying idic, not idic. But sorry,
I did it like the Texas, like I say like Italian, and I, like when we talk about Strange New Worlds, Una, I say like Illyrian. So sorry, but
when I'm trying to think, how often has it been spoken just on the shows? Not too often.
Oh yeah, that is. I mean, it was more of a thing for Gene Roddenberry wanted Lincoln Enterprise to sell this merchandise when he was in the 70s, trying to either revive Star Trek or create like another big hit show or something. So it was kind of something they shoehorned into season 3 just so like oh look, this thing like it represents the values of Star Trek, and Mr. Spock had it, so it's like really cool and you should buy it. So
that's hilarious. Are we okay with Burnham unilaterally making decisions about this technology?
It was a very Burnham thing to do.
It is. I think she probably didn't want to weaken later and overthink it in a way. But I can say that looking at humanity's journey so far in this year of 2024, it's pretty rare that technology that we are not ready for has ever not become dangerous and threatening. And arguably, there's a whole lot of technology we're not ready for. We have not evolved to deal with what it does. So, but yeah,
I think it probably doesn't make like a ton of sense like in universe for like no, like if you're the type of person who would make that choice on your own and not like call your bosses and ask them for orders, they would never give you command of like the spore drive ship to begin with. Like it's not very I guess like realistic. But again, like I like the moral of the story of just like concluding, even if it's kind of a clunky way of getting there, but just saying like the progenitors figured it out. It's like that idea of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, that was the way to play. And
right.
If it's not broke, don't fix it.
If we're gonna have a what's the meaning of life kind of thing, that's a pretty solid one. I like it because it's almost more of a description than it is like a philosophy or like or a thought process or like a morality. There is a morality to it, but it is just this is what exists. This is and like. They seemed pretty clearly to see that it was a positive thing. I guess Burnham came to that conclusion that we have, continuing that is enough. That is, we do not need to be in the business of making life.
I don't know what exactly the progenitor put in her head when it was like, I'm going to start your training now and we'll finish it next time if and when you decide to come back. But then we get like all those flashes of Burnham seeing like, like the ocean rise on Earth and her like childhood, and then like I don't know, like busy cities and like all of that stuff. It was just like that weird montage. I don't know what all like the progenitors like put in her mind, or if they were just like, there's like, here's just like, you just move the triangles like this if you want to make turtles, and you move them over here if you want to make fish, or like, I don't know, something like that. I don't know what it was like training her on. but maybe it helped inform her decision. But I guess a lot of it kind of does make more sense that she calls everyone in for like a group meeting in the ready room when Rayner's like, look who I found. Here's Saru and everything. And it was kind of weird that like Tilly's not there, but the other big brain science people, Stamets and Adira are there. And she doesn't really ask for permission. She just like tells everyone like, this is what I'm going to do. And, Saru and Rayner get behind her pretty quick. Stamets a little resistant, but Saru yells at him a little bit and he falls in line pretty quick. And, I kind of like the way that like Michael didn't like leave it up to a debate or anything. It's like, no, I've already made my choice. Like, this is what's going to happen. I'm just telling y'all.
Well, yeah, there is the sort of, I guess, the risk with technology that is like so wildly far ahead of us is that, of course, a good person like Stamets is going to think, the good it can do, and not, immediately realize...
Commander Stamets, this is not about your legacy.
Like, he got shut down by Saru. But yes, it's like, there's, not immediately realize that there's the Khan Noonien Sings of the world who will use the Genesis, for other reasons. I think broadly, I've got to still turn this over in the afterglow of the show and think about it. But I think that is a pretty solid conclusion. I honestly, Stamets is a good representation of me. He's like, I'm not sure if I completely understand it, but okay.
But then Saru would yell at you, and then you would shut up and fall in line.
Well, Adira said something comforting, but I was like,
They did.
I don't think that's going to be enough to assuage him. Like, oh yeah, this is the greatest scientific discovery of the modern era or of all time.
I don't have any kids that I know of, but I feel like someone just being like, what's really important, Dad, that I love you and that you spend time with me, and that's what really matters and gives meaning to our lives. I think that'd be enough to like.
Hey, he said words to that effect when Colbert was having his existential spiritual crisis a few episodes ago. He's like, hey, the important thing is you're doing okay and I love you, and so
sometimes it's easier to give advice and comfort to others than it is to accept it yourself.
For sure.
But the scene annoyed me because at the end of that, Stamets is like, kid, when did you get so wise? And instead, Stamets should have been like, kid, that is some really great wisdom. Did that come from one of those many past Trill lives that you had and have all these memories and past experiences? And there's no reason for you to act like a scared, timid, shy teenager?
Yeah, Fatheree, it looks like we lost the fight pretty early on in this season, or the entire season, to have the Trill lives reflected.
I didn't want to say, like, the writers forgot, because I don't want to be, like, one of the people that are like, these people who have jobs working on television are so clearly stupider than me, and I should have that job and not them, because they're very dumb. I don't want to be, like, one of those sounding people. But it's like, the writers either did forget, or they made a deliberate choice to ignore that Adira should have passed Trill memories.
Aaron in the comments makes an interesting point about that the past Trill lives make it a little bit weird to take on Stamets as a dad, because, you think like, well, they really wouldn't perceive things in a childlike way or like a young adult way, to the point where, a father figure would carry the weight it would for a younger person.
But that might have been why the writers were like, okay, we're just going to ignore that stuff.
Yeah, I think the sort of unfortunate discovery of sometimes clunky writing truth is that they wanted them to be a Trill when it was convenient for the story and ignore it when it wasn't convenient.
Yeah, I see people in the audience are saying that they forgot that Adira is not a Trill, just to explain. Adira is a human who had a Trill slug implanted inside them and has all of those memories now. Originally, they didn't have access to the memories, but then after they went to Trill and got straightened out, they were fixed and then had the memories in season 3 and then apparently doesn't remember them now for some reason that we never hear about.
I feel like Joel came up with the perfect dumb answer to this. The symbiont was sleepy this season.
I mean, if they just had one line that was just like, oh, my symbiont, like, Dr. Colbert had to put my symbiont into hibernation for a while,
right.
so...
Or even, it's very unusual that it's not a trill that bonds with the symbiont.
Or like, I've lost those, the memories have faded. Like, because I'm a human, I haven't been able to maintain the neural connections, and I don't have those memories. Oh my god, this is terrible. Dads, I need help. I've lost all those memories. Now I have an arc for season 5. I have to regain that confidence that I only had briefly. Like, oh, cool, I have like a good arc for the writers to, like, feed my character material with now. So it's like...
It's too late, Fatheree.
I know. I said I did not want to sound like one of those people who complain about how dumb the writers are.
It led to an interesting conversation, and now I think this is something like if they followed up and had Adira in a book or a comic or
Bring
something.
Adira back to the... Adira can be one of the mentors at the Academy. Tilly's talking about the mentor program.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's the perfect time to do the same thing that like Dave Filoni does for Star Wars. And when he does it right, it's like he patches things up, and it's like, oh, that's why this dumb thing happened in the prequels, or they forgot this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
It's fixed now. So there are doors open, but for now, I'm gonna go with the symbiont was sleepy.
Fair enough. We had some other ending wrap-up stuff before we get to the big wedding. But one of the things I said a couple weeks ago is I was really looking forward to the next book and Moll conversation. Like, I wanted to see what would happen whenever they were like in a room together and could talk. And I was a little, I gotta say it again, but underwhelmed with what we got here. But I like that Moll has the option to come back as a Kovich agent. I think that could be potentially cool. It could be potentially dumb too, depending on what they do with it.
Sure. I think the actress has done a really good job with Moll, especially since the writers, especially in the latter half of the season, or the latter third maybe, latter fourth, have kind of not had a lot of places for her to go other than desperation, and so I always think she's doing a good job. And what could she be here but disappointed? It's not all is lost quite. I think there is still, even with the thing they released, the portal to the Progenitors tech into the event horizon of the black hole.
Yeah, they let it fall in, so they can't get it out now.
Where but according to weird bending physics, that essentially will kind of freeze it in time at a certain point, and theoretically it could be accessed. I doubt she's exactly thinking about this. I don't think she's a big physics person, but I feel like they kind of painted themselves into a corner. That you want catharsis and you want conclusion with these people. I want Book to be able to hug her and and for her to find some love in a cold universe, and she's been deprived of it, and that can't happen. What could she possibly be but upset and sad and angry about that right now? But there was
that's like a thing in life too. Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but.
Well, no, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine, Fatheree. It's you're right.
You gotta accept death. You gotta your loved ones are gonna die. Like, I'm sorry. That's right. Terrible. That's the worst part of the human experience. But your loved ones are gonna die, and you have to accept that.
No, I think that it happened totally cool. The writers get to structure what we see though, and even if it meant them jumping ahead, show that in a year's time or something like that, where things have gotten better. Because I think I want, as a viewer, I want catharsis to her story, and I want catharsis to Book's story. Maybe one day we won't hate each other doesn't get me there. But there is a little redemption. I think that. I actually very much liked the part that you were talking about, Fatheree, that it's a little reflective of the imperfections and things although the Discovery characters mostly got what they wanted, she didn't. And I don't know what the hell's going to be going on with the Breen. I guess the war for succession continues.
Yeah,
But
the
yes,
Breen are going to be the Klingons of the Academy show. I think is what's going on with them. Or I hope so.
yeah, it's an opportunity to continue to do some more work on them and get the kind of the depth that I wanted. Um, but yeah, like a lot of things in this episode, there was like I think that I kind of wanted more out of it, but I also there's nothing in it that like I thought was bad, and there's even things I thought were good in that scene. I thought both of them were doing their great acting. David Ajala, as always, knows what's up.
That
Um,
line from him, "If you ever need me, I'll be here. Who knows? You may even stop hating the name," or Cleveland
Cleveland
Booker,
Booker.
or something like that. Whatever he says, but
Mm-hmm.
it made me wonder, like, oh, is he going to become her courier mentor, and she's going to become Cleveland Booker the sixth? And I'm almost like, I don't know if I'd want that or not, because
I don't think he
like,
needs to be putting her in danger.
I mean, I assume one day after she's done like enough missions for Kovich, she'll be a free woman again, and then maybe like she'll be a courier. I assume like Book can still do. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's done with the courier life altogether. Maybe he'll do courier jobs. We don't really know. I mean, he does apparently Red Directive missions with Michael when they're in like their nice wedding wardrobe or whatever.
That's true. That's true.
We should talk about the wedding in a moment, but before that, there is the Kovich scene with Michael where they talk about, they set that up like, hey, if we ever decide to do a Discovery reunion made for streaming movie on Paramount Plus with Showtime, here is the little Infinity Room calling card thing where I can get a hold of you for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's got all kinds of fun tchotchkes and stuff behind him for us to freeze frame on and talk about in Gorn eggs.
Yeah, he's got a room full of Gorn eggs.
This is a beautiful shot. No wonder, Father, all those amber and gold tones, they all look like the elven cities in Lord of the Rings. That's why I think that's one of the reasons it's so much in my mind. And this round door in here looks like a hobbit hole, but looks all futuristic.
Okay, you gotta stop talking about the visuals.
All right, well, we have a slide up showing the Kovich's Infinity Room. It's a very beautiful visual. Go and pause at where Kovich and Burnham are framed by the round door with a lot of glowing gold patterns and lattices in it.
What do you think of the reveal of Kovich being Daniels from Enterprise?
Well, I had to be like, think like, hey, is that guy I just met on Enterprise who doesn't mean a whole lot to me? And I was like, oh yeah, I think that's him. So I know that some people like freak the F out over that. For me, it's kind of a neat thing, but it didn't have a deep meaning for me. How about you, Fatheree?
It bothered me that he said Agent Daniels U.S.S. Enterprise, because I'm like, he should have said Enterprise NX-01 if he's talking about Archer's Enterprise. It doesn't say U.S.S. Enterprise on that hull, but maybe it does on the refit, on Doug Drexler's refit that's at the Starfleet Museum. But that seemed a little odd to me. But maybe he was also on like a different Enterprise. Maybe that like he was Daniels on Archer's Enterprise, then he was disguised as someone else on Picard's Enterprise, and he's someone else on Kirk/Pike's Enterprise. I don't know. But I thought it was good to get some explanation with Kovich. Unlike the Breen, I wanted to chip away some of the Kovich mysteries. We talked about this at the beginning of the season. I was saying, like, I kind of want Kovich to always be mysterious. And then you talked me out of that, Dave, when you said, like, well, you know, what does it say if we need Starfleet and the Federation in order to function? They need, like, this, like, really powerful figure in the shadows who doesn't have to answer to authority and just seems to have, like, a lot of control and no accountability. And I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like, I want some answers on Kovich. And so, like, knowing that he's Daniels makes me feel better about him. But I still like that it allows him to be pretty mysterious. Like, there's still, like, a lot of stuff we don't know. You know, it answers some questions, but raises others.
Yeah, mystery is great as a kind of like in fiction. But in reality, you kind of want transparency and trust and community and things like that. But because we also get to like see these characters over the span of time, we get to know. It's almost like a superhero kind of thing. It's like, well, I don't want vigilantes in the real world, but in comics and stuff like that, I get to have this kind of magical world where vigilantism is mostly practiced by people who do the right thing. And and here we've got Kovich, and yeah, he's operating without oversight, but he's doing the right thing. Not something I want in life, but it's good fiction. Good fiction.
Yeah, but I knowing that he's Daniels, I think helps ground it a little bit. Like, oh, he's actually been really involved with with these systems and with these institutions for a while. So I don't know why he's so long lived, but he's I don't know, a relic of the temporal war probably.
I guess I'll be watching when we return to Enterprise for season 2 and onward.
Yeah, because that's where we left off. Dave and I were covering Enterprise season 1 at the beginning of the year, and we're going to pick up with season 2 probably at some point this summer, depending on whenever the hell Netflix decides to release Prodigy. But perhaps sometimes between now and whenever the hell Paramount Plus with Showtime decides to release Lower Decks, Dave and I will check in with Archer and Daniels in the 31st century. Before the disco time, they're in the 31st, not the 32nd.
I'll be watching him with different eyes as a result of this.
As will we all. I will be too now.
Yeah, what's a 20-ish year old show with some at least some element of modern eyes.
Well, let's talk about the wedding. So I was wondering, are they going to get married on Navarre or on Kaminar, and apparently it's on Kaminar. But I would have thought there would have been more Kelpians, but I guess they're kind of a hard prosthetic to pull off. There was at least one in the background walking around.
Sukal, even though he was, or Sukal, really an older Kelpian. I was like, not Kaminarian. Even though he was an older Kelpian, was essentially like an adopted son. Yeah. I was like, it would have made a lot of sense for him to be there, but this is a fiction thing too. Like, he's not important to this. He's not part of the Discovery family overall. Yes, it would have made sense for him to be there. He's probably around there somewhere in the background, Yeah,
Sukal's probably there. Jill in the live audience is asking where is Saru's sister, and she's probably, I don't know how long Kelpians live, but if they're comparable to human lifetime, she's been dead 700 or 800 years at this point.
That's true. But yeah, we got to see the family we know, so that's of course the big thing here.
Yeah, except Owo and Detmer aren't in these scenes, but I assume like they were like somewhere in the background or somewhere.
Right.
But it was like a little awkward that like they're not there.
It was kind of too bad, but I like that scene, the scene that we just had a slide up a minute ago of with Rayner and Tilly. Tilly's planning on the mentorship program. She accidentally calls Rayner cranky, surly. What is
Crabby? I think.
Yeah, that's right. And they get to have a little fun banter. We get that sense of passing the torch on to the.
No, we see the kiss. They have never shown a Saru Tarina kiss until this moment, and I heard that there is actually a bit of conflict on the show. Jonathan Frakes wanted them to kiss in last week's episode. They had like that moment. I actually pointed that out when they had like that long hug and embrace. I was like, that would have been like a really good time for them to have like their first on-screen kiss, but instead like they save it for the wedding, which makes sense. Knowing this will. I don't know if they knew it was going to be series finale when they were making these decisions. Probably not, but the fact that it is the series finale, I guess, okay, yeah, save it for if you're only going to have it happen one time, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, good job with the slightly more articulated lips that he's got there. This is very, this was mostly kind of there was not a lot of detail to the wedding. It was there to show us good things happen.
I didn't need to see like the Kelpian Vulcan fusion ceremony or like I was fine with that happen. We just saw like the immediate after the ceremony, like between ceremony and reception. Like when like now they're gonna like everyone's gonna stand around and take a bunch of pictures and I'm gonna go get in line at the keg or whatever. It's like it was like that moment.
I did want to see. I think I would have liked to have seen somebody getting a little bit tipsy or drunk.
That would have been fun. I don't know if do they have alcohol on Kaminar? I don't know if Kelpians, whatever, like the Baiul might get like a little crazy, if you get a few drinks in them, you don't have to cut them off. There
I
should
feel
have been some tar monsters in a town. I wanted to see like some dude come out of the tar, like crying, like, "Oh, weddings always make me cry." Oh,
yes, those guys. No matter how even if they say like the nicest thing, it's gonna come across
it has to be
terrifying.
scary monster voice.
Yeah. And they, fathers, when they should have done the traditional, if anybody has any objections moment, and one of these tar guys just rises up.
Yeah, he's just like, "Saru, I always loved you."
Yeah, I kind of would have liked for them to be
Then,
there.
and then Tarina has to fight the tar monster, and because it's also a Vulcan wedding, and they have Mortal Kombat at their wedding, so
you just like the instant she sees it, that Vulcan gong goes off.
yeah, and then the Amok Time music starts playing.
Yep, but with a Mortal Kombat beat dropped on it, I'm gonna say, as long as we're making this shit up.
Why not? Let's just make it even stupider.
You know what? No, broadly, Fatheree, did you enjoy the wedding? I liked the little brief glimpses that we saw of it to know things turned out good. I was the part of me that likes happy endings, which it actually really likes sad endings.
It was all it was all safe and predictable, but it was all good. Like it wasn't bad, but none of it. It would have been nice to have like a surprise in there. But that's okay. That's I'll take safe and good over. Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like Star Trek has a mission statement to boldly go, but the show had plenty of moments of boldness.
It's true. It's true. And then we get a little bit of that, the adventure continues moment here with this very nice scene. By the way, Burnham and Book, look how good they look. They're two very, very attractive people, stealing a little moment for themselves on a beautiful beach at sunset.
So does everyone else assume like Michael and Burnham are just having sex on the beach right now? Because like they run off to go do a mission for Kovich, but everyone else is going to be like, "Hey, where did Michael go? I don't know." Like as soon as Book got here, I saw the two of them like walk to the beach, but that was like 3 hours ago. Like I don't know where they are.
Yeah, I think Tilly is going to be like, "I'm pretty sure they're reconciling." She's going to make air quotes. And everybody will be like, and then Saru will be like, I understand.
But that's where it smash cuts to like Burnham being thrown into a trash can or something, because they're actually fighting an alien on some planet somewhere. Yeah.
Get back to us, Paramount. We've got the cold open for season 6. When you sneak it back in, we've got the cold open written.
I always try to be a bit realistic when I talk about the things I want to see from Paramount, in the coming years. The Star Trek that I want to see. I always try to be a little realistic, and I get kind of frustrated when I talk to people who are like, "Well, what if they, did Deep Space Nine season 8 and they brought back Avery Brooks?" I'm like, "Okay, Avery Brooks is not coming back. If we're gonna speculate, let's see what some realistic speculation would be." But I know that they tore down the Discovery Bridge sets, but we lost a lot of animated Star Trek recently. I would love to see a Discovery animated something, and just you bring all these people back to do the voices. You don't have to build any sets. I think that'd be really cool. I would be down for a Book and Burnham animated adventure, but I don't know if that would happen. But it might be cheaper and more realistic. I'm just saying.
Yeah, at this point, I think, by the way, they could both be good voice actors. And I don't have any real thoughts as to exactly what I want to see, other than some of these people in not Lower Decks, Academy, Starfleet Academy. But there's not one character on the show that I wouldn't enjoy revisiting. From Detmer to Reese to anybody else, to the big guns like Saru and Tilly, of course. Tilly's probably going to show up and stuff.
Yeah, that will be officially announced any moment now. They'll be and Mary Wiseman will be in Star Trek, Starfleet Academy with Holly Hunter and these other people.
Saru has been kind of, either the favorite or top among the very, very top favorites on the show for me the whole time. So it was nice to go ahead and get a full win for him. That guy, he had a rough early life. He had to see his people regularly dying, and his father, sort of preaching that this was the way. And then he had to just make those tentative first steps into space for them, for Kelpians. He's dealt with a lot, and so very, very glad for him and Tarina there.
Well, one last thing I'll say on Book and Burnham on the beach before we flash forward and see their future. But I had been saying all season long that I wanted the two of them to get back together. And I kind of enjoyed like having to worry about it for a little bit. I can get behind a little soap opera trash and drama every now and then. But it was very satisfying to finally see them not just like get back together and have like that romantic kiss on the beach and everything, but then like we flash forward and see like they're happily ever after. And
right. You know, I am such a sucker for this kind of thing when I like realize that you flashed forward.
The flash forward.
Yeah, I get like teary-eyed just like by that sense of passage of time and like of what I've missed, but that it's been happy is somehow wistful and a little bit sad.
Oh yeah, it can be so beautiful though. Like what we were just talking about, how I was saying I want to go back in time to season 1, Dave and Fatheree, but just like think of all the shit that this poor girl has gone through, Michael Burnham, like her parents being massacred by Klingons, and then you were talking about like Saru's sob story, but like Michael's got one too. Then like having to be raised by Sarek of Vulcan, like that asshole. That's a traumatic experience, and I mean like all 3 of his kids came out kind of fucked up. So like she went through that, having the entire Klingon war blamed on her, and then coming to the future and having to solve the burn and help rebuild the Federation. It's like by the way, she never knew. She never knew through any of that she was gonna get like this, this happy ending with like these decades of like peace and comfort. And like imagine that. Like that. I feel so bad for her, like suffering. Like I wish I could go tell the character, like it's okay. You're gonna get past it. It's gonna get better. Right.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's intense. But yeah, I loved seeing him here, and it was kind of safe, but sometimes I kind of like that. It's like a little hug at the end. When I see this in movies or a book does this, and things kind of work out.
And it is a little long in the tooth. They spend a lot of time in this flash forward sequence. It's like 20 minutes or close to that, but it's fun just like linger and like in the home, in the future home of Book and Burnham, and you kind of figure it out yourself. Like you see like, oh, there's his root box, and there's Burnham's infinity room calling card thing, and Giorgio's telescope, and it's like I don't know, it's just like there's something beautiful of that, of like it felt like their two worlds came together quite nicely.
Look at his dad jacket in that picture. But the only thing I didn't like, because I thought this was a very beautiful looking place that they're living in. Everybody in Trek is so rustic, though, and I was like, God, like I love the outdoors, and like I would love to stay at a place like that, but I wouldn't want to live there. That's a little too isolated. Are they the only people on that planet?
That surprises me to hear you say that. Like, no, there's other people on Sanctuary 4. Like, we saw them in season 3.
Okay, so there's like towns and stuff and cities, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't. I would not. I love me some lighthouses, Fatheree, and I'll occasionally be like, oh, could I be the lighthouse keeper in a small town, living my life there? And I was like, no, I need to be somewhat around people. I can't be that isolated. It's too much. But yeah, so we get to see them having like, married couple, casual.
Getting your coffee ruined first thing in the morning because your husband puts weird Gaxera bee wax in it.
I see my friend Sid is in the comments and wants the dad jacket that he's wearing there. Yeah, but I love their banter. It's it's that comfortable couple that have had like they gently argue. None of it is serious. They you can feel the love when they're joking around and all that. And they've clearly built a comfortable life. She's an admiral. That's she's made it up through the ranks.
Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but Saru got promoted to admiral at the wedding. Vance says, "Congratulations, Admiral," to Saru.
Sorry, say that one more time, Father.
Saru got promoted to admiral in this episode. Also, at the wedding, Saru is an admiral. Vance tells him, "Congratulations, Admiral."
Oh, interesting. Well, I thought he was kind of like outside of that command structure because of the ambassador stuff.
I guess he's still got a Starfleet rank. They had been referring to him as Captain Saru in the last couple of episodes instead of Ambassador Saru, so I guess they were already like preparing themselves for his big promotion in the last episode.
Yeah, oh, somebody, Joel in the comments, I guess there's some wondering about Grudge and where Grudge is hiding.
I don't think cats live that long, but maybe in the 33rd century by this point, maybe they do.
I guess that's true. That's true. I guess I would say it'd be like nice to see some other animals around, but then you kind of like have to explain that if you do that and be like, oh, who's this guy? Who's the dog? Who's the cat?
They had Alice, the space deer.
They had Alice the space deer. Had we seen Alice before?
No. The only creature we had seen on Sanctuary 4 previously was Molly the trance worm when they dropped her off here. And that's how we know there's other people on this planet, because there were other people hanging around when they dropped off the worm.
And were those, I presume, transworms that we saw swimming in the lakes?
Yeah, it was the same river. It was like the same shot.
That's cool. I do like that. I want him to be surrounded by life, and I want Book to feel that connection again. And
it was like a good like happy ending for Book got to have his sanctuary planet where he could like grow his world root and have like all the animals he saved, and he can wake up early in the morning and go play with his bees or whatever, and his wife and his son can do like their Starfleet things.
Yep, and indeed that's what happens next is we see the arrival of their son, whose name was, I thought, a little too Dune to.
Well, they named him after Leto in seasons 3 and 4.
Remind me who Leto was the kid.
Was Book's nephew.
Oh, that's right. Honestly, I'd forgotten him. That kid was annoying to me, and I was glad he got blown up. No,
you don't mean that.
But I'd forgotten that. But he's a good-looking young man. I feel like he's got the right stuff for this. We didn't get to see a whole lot of him, but he looks like a good kid, and I like this banter with Dad too. Yeah,
and Sonequa Martin Green and David Ajala have like such great chemistry that I thought it was good for like this guy. He could. I don't know if he's a great actor. We didn't see like a ton of his range, but like in that scene, he was able to bounce back with like that family vibe. Like it felt like this guy had grown up with these people, that they've known each other for years. You really felt like that connective tissue.
Yeah, they had sort of little inside phrases and references and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and like when Michael was saying like only one eye, we're not pirates. When Book said aye, that was a reference to season 3. That was a conversation they had when she dressed him up in the Starfleet uniform in People of Earth, and he said aye, and then she said only one eye, we're not pirates.
Okay, nice. That's a nice touch.
It was a nice touch to add in here because it confirms, like, yeah, this guy was never a part of Starfleet. He was never going to be in Starfleet. Fatheree, you had no reason to get all worried about the show ever trying to force him into the first officer role. Because they did too much development with Saru, that Saru outgrew the first officer role. Before they even put Burnham in the captain's chair, they had already like developed Saru off of the ship, basically. So I was like, please do not force Book into that first officer position. Yep. And I am very happy they did not.
That was a nice little relief there.
Oh, and we got new uniforms. We got the 33rd century uniforms now.
Yeah, they look good. It's a version of the visually it resembles at least the maroons of the TOS movies.
They're like the monster maroons of the next millennium.
Yeah. I think I heard it also, somebody said that they looked like the dress uniforms from Strange New Worlds.
I can see that. Yeah, Burnham's does. Burnham's Admiral uniform looks a lot like those.
Yeah. But I love that flyby in their shuttle of the rivers with the transworms and stuff in it. It just looked nice. That's why it's my background. It's my scene behind my scenes.
The conversation in the shuttle, though, I thought it was a little weird. And keep it in mind, they had to write and shoot this quickly before the writers and actors went on strike. But it seems like a little weird to me that Vance, I guess, is still an admiral at Starfleet, like all these years later, like 30, 40 years later, that dude is still that guy who was like working like in the dilithium crisis years. Like, please, like let him retire. That dude needs like he needs a nice house out in the country, like Book and Burnham had.
Yeah, it was their, they wanted to kind of keep all the names and faces we knew thing. But I agree, it's a little silly. The one thing is, if I was looking for the reason for it to exist, I would say the burn was a special kind of bad, and somebody who was really good at shepherding them out of it might have been like somebody who wanted to stay with it.
They just couldn't get him to retire. Like, he just kept, because they're like, okay, we're just gonna like let him like keep his desk and office because like he refuses to stay home, but.
He's just in there mostly texting that guy who was the one guy sending out Federation communications when they came to the 32nd century. The guy who was keeping the faith, keeping the fire lit.
Oh, Sahil?
Yes. I always wanted more with him.
Yeah. It was nice that he made it off of his outpost, though. At least they confirmed that for us. But Admiral Michael Burnham tells Captain Leto Burnham basically the thing I said at the opening of the show about how if you're gonna inspire your crew and tell them like the most important thing they've ever heard, like you're not gonna know what to tell them. They're gonna have to find something like in themselves and whatever is gonna be the most meaningful thing to them. Mm-hmm. Earlier, like the progenitor gives that long speech with like the different examples of like the different common things, like the things like the progenitor is naming that I guess applied to some of the characters in the show were, meaning of science, devotion to duty, connection and love, family and community, capacity to change was like the one for Rayner. I think the one that like resonated with me, I think, was the devotion to duty. I always describe myself as a creature of duty, like the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror. I always feel like I have some obligation I got to get to. I feel like that moment when the Romulan is like, I have one last duty to perform. I often feel like incredibly fatigued, but like I promised someone that I would be somewhere or have something done, so I have to like do that. But I guess that's where I find meaning, is in devotion to duty.
That's interesting. I'll have to think about those kind of things over time. I think in a weird way I felt a kinship closer with Tilly and her sort of struggles to figure out her direction and her role in life. I love that Trek does this, by the way, that, there's like different characters I identify with, but like Tilly definitely was one of those people. Like Saru is like maybe my favorite character, but I don't particularly identify with him.
It's interesting. I think my favorite character in Discovery, looking back at this point, is actually Book. And I think in some ways he is the one that I relate to the most. Like, as much as I love Star Trek and I love like rooting for these Starfleet people, I have a hard time seeing myself in Starfleet if I existed in the Starfleet universe. Like, I don't know if it's like if I would want to like work in that organization. I don't know if that would just be like how I would want to spend my time.
A little regimented and all that.
But yeah, Book is like a bit of the outsider, but he still like shares like a lot of the similar values. I hear some people complain about like, why are there no like straight men on Discovery? But it's like there is with like one of the main characters in the show. Like a big thing is about like his relationship with the main character, and that was I feel like if you like a guy who you want to if you like me like relate to characters who like think girls are pretty and want to kiss girls, and like you don't need to be alarmed that there's not enough like straight dudes on TV, because like there often are, but he's like the example of that. Like he represents that on this show.
It's true. It's funny. I don't even, I'm not trying to claim I'm some amazing, I don't see color, I don't see orientation or anything like that. But I have not thought about that in a long time, about like what the ratio or whatever is of straight to queer or anything like that. But Book's great. Rayner seems like a guy who's probably straight but somewhat toxic guy.
Rayner's another dude that I relate to, but I think like some of the flaws I have, I see reflected in him. But yeah, it's been like a lot of fun with these characters, and like I said, like I do like really enjoy kind of the big conclusion, I guess, like the big discovery of discovery is that everyone has to make like their own discovery by looking inward and seeing what's most meaningful to them. I clearly like the fact of how I dedicate so much of my time to making Star Trek podcast content, like, you know, doing this with all of y'all is clearly like meaningful to me.
You know, Fatheree, when we did our what we want to see in this season list before it started,
Which we can bring up next week when we talk about our thoughts on all of season 5 as a whole.
Little check through, but just as maybe a preview of that, one of the things I wanted was for this to, because it was that treasure hunt structure, I wanted them to actually make a big discovery, something that would change Trek lore forever, and they did do that, but it was in a way that kind of like there was a little bit of, I mean, it's not quite the same as the J.J. Abrams puzzle box where the mystery continues, but the discovery broadly I think was more inward than it was like, hey, we discovered all this lore that you're going to be digesting for years to come. Like, yeah, of course it's going to change what the progenitors are, how they're written up on Memory Alpha and all that stuff. But I do, you know, I like that in the end, the biggest stuff in Discovery was self-discovery. I think that's very fitting for the show. It fits, it's been doing that from the very beginning.
Well, I'm glad that we talked about like all like that really cool, beautiful stuff that we liked in this episode, because I have to now complain about like the one thing that I really disliked in this episode and possibly hate. I just like, I want to, you know, sometimes I'm sure I mess up and I say like, oh, I hated that or whatever, kind of casually, but I try to only say I hate something on the show when I truly hate something and try to like not overuse that. So I'm going to have to sit on it a while, but I really dislike the way that they go about trying to wrap up Calypso and fitting that into the last episode and just being like, okay, the reason why the ship looked the way it looked in seasons 1 and 2 and was like out in that nebula waiting on Kraft to show up was because Zora was ordered to do that, and it was kind of abandoned, and was even like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like that. And then Burnham's like, oh, don't worry, it'll be fun. You can just go look up all of our descendants. You can find like the next generation of your family. Okay, bye, Zora. And it's like, that is really terrible. I mean, like, I'm not taking it too seriously. I know this was just something they kind of just tacked on at the end to explain a short trek that I don't think many people honestly saw. I don't think many people watched those, but it just... I mean, if you want to like sit there and think about it, like, I don't know, does that like character assassinate Michael that she would like do that to Zora?
So, Father, I was not needing Calypso to be explained.
Yeah.
That's not one of those things that weighed on me. But I thought it was kind of neat. And, you know, I think I'm giving it a best faith interpretation that, well, first of all, we don't know, they don't ever exactly say what the whole deal was, right? It's a red directive, something that's like, oh, this mystery is a little bit beyond us, why we do this thing. But I was trying to remember, in Calypso, Zora was clearly lonely, right?
Right. She had been, and she says, oh, I've been waiting here for 1,000 years. The captain told me to wait here for, and that was 1,000 years ago.
Right. And so that is, like, that's a little bit troubling. I wish, if they had kind of rounded it out with, like, saying something like, you know, this is a risky mission, Zora. There's a reason which we're going to have to tell you at some later point for whatever reason. You know, you can't know it because it could be scanned and learned from you and whatever reason. But like, this may be difficult, and you know, you may have some trouble with this. And if Zora were to say, like, you know, I don't process things the same way you do. And there's to some extent.
Sure, yeah, you could have like explained it, just being like, I don't process time that way, or like something like that.
I'll be in a dreamlike state.
They didn't do that. They didn't do that.
Right, but I think that it's not too hard to imagine that. It's to me, it's mostly a minor thing, but yeah, it's weird that you wouldn't include that extra line or two of dialogue. Like, why not?
Because this wasn't written organically. This wasn't like something like a writer like thought of, and it was like important to them to like make it make sense. It was like, well, this will shut up the people complaining on the internet, which gives me mixed feelings because that's like the entire thing that we do. And I think at times, the creators do a good job of like taking fan criticism and factoring it back into the show and making the show better. I think Discovery Season 5 is largely proof of that in a lot of ways. I think like it uses the larger universe better in a lot of ways, but like here, like this reminds me of like Season 2 of Discovery when they make Spock like swear to never mention his sister Captain Burnham like to anyone. It's like I didn't need that explained. Why does he never talk about her? Like that was unnecessary.
Well, that's I think that's pretty minor to me. It just kind of, it's a little bit of explanation for the fans, that seems okay. Also, like what you were saying, like that's such a negative interpretation where they're like doing it just to shut up the fans. I think that knowing the Discovery's creators, that it was probably more like, let's do one final fun Easter egg, and then probably because they were
well, yeah, it's like the fans were like this would have been like the generous way to say that, but
right, and then. Because they were pressed for time, they didn't exactly do the best version of it.
Yeah, they did have to rush this because of the strike. So I'm not surprised that like they don't even when the cast shows up like this was clearly like shot in a single day. Like the only person who talks, I think Saru just says Captain to Burnham, and then like they kind of like dance around and everyone hugs. But it was I still enjoyed it. Like don't get me wrong, I loved that they included this. And
the Calypso thing or the final like. Sort of memory of the crew being together. That when
they all like when they do like the big Discovery group hug and they're all like hug. They do like the Discovery thing. Everyone's like hugging and crying and smiling. And
it was nice because you know what?
I like it.
Jet Reno often has such a sardonic expression, and here she actually looked. She was just happy.
Oh, it's almost like at the end of Star Trek 4, where like even Spock is smiling. When they're all happy, splashing around. Yeah.
Yep.
But Wilson Cruz couldn't be there when they shot this, so he's like added in digitally. But everyone else was actually there, so it's cool to know like the actors got to like they got to like all go back to school for like the last day of school and
yeah, that is a very cool thing. And by the way, I guess they must have done a good job with the digital stuff for Wilson Cruz because I've read that
it was only one shot. It was just one shot.
Yeah, but I didn't. It didn't strike me as. Like, oh, that really pops and stands out or anything. They did a good job working it.
It stood out to me, but I already knew that he wasn't there, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, definitely. Not knowing it didn't seem out of keeping with the other sort of slow-mo and showy images that they were already doing. Look at that. We have an image of Tilly and Burnham hugging. Always love to see that.
And the last line of dialogue, we end with Burnham's captain catchphrase, "Let's fly." And we get one last Discovery spinneroony when it does the spore jump and spins around. But it was cool seeing like all of the 33rd century at this point ships and shuttles out there kind of giving it a salute. I think it is interesting, like, in that Academy show or anything else, it's like if they introduce like a lot of like new shuttle designs and stuff like that, it's gonna make this look weird in the future. It's like, why are they only having like the stuff from like Discovery's heyday? Why don't they have any like that new stuff we saw in the Academy show?
I do know that like gets inside some people's heads, but it's one of those things where I'm always hyper aware of it's just a different show. They didn't have time to come up with a billion different assets.
They do a good job like leaving options open for themselves. Like all they say is that Vance is still an admiral and Tilly's been like the longest teacher at the Academy ever. So as long as Vance and Tilly, like
she's not going to die.
Those two characters are going to survive the Academy show. They will never die, and they will never be drummed out of Starfleet. And if it ever teases that's going to happen, we know that it won't. But that's okay. Like I didn't think those things were going to happen anyways, so that's fine.
Right. Yeah, I think there's like so many different ways you can create drama than will this person live or die.
Yeah, and good creators can still do a scene that could be suspenseful enough that if I watch it in the heat of the moment, they can convince me like, oh my God, Tilly's about to die. Yeah, it happens all the time. I don't know if I have anything else to say on the. I guess like the coda scene. I guess it was a bit of a mixed bag for me. Like largely good, but like one thing I possibly hate thrown in there that just felt like such unnecessary fan service. It kind of got in the way of the story. But other than that, I approve. Played it very safe, but I was happy to see things work out for Book and Burnham. Ultimately, that is what I think I wanted.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that after honestly, there's been a lot of angst on the show, and there's been a lot of soul searching, and people turned against each other, whether it was Book and Burnham or Stamets and Culber falling apart at times. Tilly, or I'm sorry, not Tilly, Arium, going through things. The show has put these characters through a lot, and I was totally cool with a laid back ending. It turns out, I didn't even think twice about accepting its kind of somewhat lightweight. I do admit outro for the characters.
I have seen great Star Trek finales. I have seen bad Star Trek finales, series finales. Like
Are we
no one
talking
thinks.
Enterprise here?
Yeah, no one likes that. No one likes Turnabout Intruder from the original series. And that was never intended to be a series finale,
Sure.
but I mean it is one. It is one.
I forgot that was literally the last one. Ouchie.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. This is a good but not great series finale. I had a great time with Discovery season 5. I'll talk more about that next week. I had a very good time with Discovery overall, and like I said, this is a good, serviceable finale. I think it could have been better, but I'm happy. I'm satisfied with what we got. And
yeah, to some degree, Fatheree, and this has come up many times when we've been watching this. When things are going good for me, sometimes in a sort of longer format stuff, usually not a movie, but like longer format franchises. Say there's a run on a comic I'm liking, and we're like 2 or 3 years into it. I start waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, oh, they're going to probably lose this and sort of bungle the ending, or the last year or two is not going to be so good. And so it's really been kind of a pleasant surprise to me that Discovery, which has had ups and downs for me throughout, to me at least, found its footing most in the 32nd century. And those were my favorite seasons. Not without issues. Never was without issues. The way Strange New Worlds is without issues. So it was almost a relief in some ways, and like that's a little bit of a criticism of the show, that it should be a relief that they didn't fuck it up. Like they've been known to do with some of their endings. Like a solid ending is like, oh, woo, that feels more than solid to me, because Discovery's track record hasn't always been great with finales. And so, I actually I think I'm sort of feeling more positive than you right at this moment about it. And was pretty happy with it.
But I think I'm happier with season 5 as a whole. I think I enjoy the season 5 more than you.
Interesting. Yeah, even the episode where they had to eat the dust cough drops.
That wasn't. I didn't have a bad time with that episode. I mean,
you just mentioned it.
I was mixed. I was mixed on it, okay. But I didn't say it was bad. I didn't say I disliked it.
Yeah, I'm mostly joking.
I thought it was meh.
Yeah,
I think you flat out disliked it.
I was somewhere between meh and dislike.
But overall, I did love season 5. But I want to talk about that more next week.
Yeah, I felt honestly quite happy with this, and I'm looking forward also to next week when we do the overview of the whole thing. We can talk about how they handled that the genre of the puzzle solving chases and all of that stuff. But for now, I'm gonna spend the next few days kind of basking in the warm, fuzzy glow that Rayner would not like, of hugs and happy careers for their son, and transworms swimming in the lake.
Well, with that being said, let's go on to the Gornegg section of the show. This is where we like to talk about the in-jokes, Easter eggs, and continuity connections in the episode that we thought were worth bringing up. And we do have several to get through here, so buckle up. But starting off in the Discovery opening title sequence. They change it every season. And this year, they included some elements from all 5 past seasons. They had some season 1, season 2 stuff. They had the Klingon knives, the Enterprise captain's chair, the old spacesuit helmet. They had Zora's voice visualization thing from season 4. They had books shipped from season 3. What they did not have, unfortunately for Dave, was the 2 hands that never touch still remain in limbo. Untouching. What is the opposite of what Spock and T'Pring would say? Like, always touch. What is it? Like, always touching, always together, whatever. It's like, this is like never connected, never together, always separate, always apart.
They're unclasped.
Yeah.
But look, I just want Paramount to know, you can still go back in and edit that in later.
No, do not George Lucas your shit. Like it lived, it died, it's happened. That's in the past. Move on.
Now go ahead and do it. Break all the
Discovery
rules.
Remastered coming soon to Paramount Plus with Showtime.
No, not one other change. Okay. And I only wanted in the series finale, right, Fatheree? It's like every other episode. Go ahead and show the hands pull apart.
Dr. Kolber gets a Dr. McCoy type line when he says, "I'm a doctor, not a physicist," which I've decided, I'm okay if a Star Trek doctor other than McCoy, I feel like everyone gets one of those. You get just one.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
The Voyager doctor might have had a couple, but he can be the exception to the rule. But everyone else, you only get one, and this was Kolber's. But Kovich had a few things that we get a look at in his office. He had the Chateau Picard wine bottle, but it's actually, I think it's the same prop that was in Giorgio's ready room in the first 2 episodes of Discovery on the Shinjo. It's like that unique style of Chateau Picard wine. I don't think we've seen this particular label on a bottle at any other point for people who are watching for the props in Star Trek. And we also saw Geordi's visor and Cisco's baseball. The baseball had been cleaned up. It was a little grungier when it was on Cisco's desk. I think Kovich washed it or something. But there's also a Terran dagger hanging up in there and some other things. And then Kovich himself being Daniels, the 31st century temporal agent from Star Trek Enterprise.
That was his native century was 31st century, so just a little bit before the current season of Discovery. Yeah,
so he would have been around as Daniels before the burn, before the I guess during the temporal war. I guess that was the order of things. You have the temporal Cold War, the temporal war, and then the temporal Accords, which ends all of that stuff and ends time travel, and then you have the burn.
Right.
So that was Kovich / how do we refer to him in the future? Is he Kovich or Daniels?
He's going by Kovich presently. I feel like we honor that.
Okay, so that's what Kovich went through. That was his backstory. That's the confirmed things that we know about. Temporal Cold War, Temporal War, Temporal Accords, the burn, and then he's helping out Vance at HQ.
Daniel or Joel in the comments says Daniel's screwed up allowing the burn.
Yeah, and maybe that was a mistake on his hands. Yeah.
Or maybe that's some sort of weird long-term gambit. He's like, yeah, it was terrible, but it had to happen so blank could happen.
Oh, yeah, if he had to do it to prevent something else. Yeah, what would a... Geez, that's scary, whatever that... Maybe that's what they're saving for the 1000th episode of Star Trek coming soon. I keep saying they need to do something big for.
That'd be dope.
I mean, I think it should be the takedown of Section 31, the permanent defeat of Section 31, and have it be we were our own worst enemy all along, and all of Star Trek should be about self-reflection, but maybe I need to, get off of my, my looking into the mirror high horse that I seem to be on lately. Also, in the Gorn Eggs, we got a fun one from Book at the wedding. He says that he was late because he was dealing with Talaxian pirates. So I like the idea that Neelix's descendants are raising hell in the 32nd century. I want to see some rowdy Talaxian pirates in the Academy show, maybe. It can't be all Breen as the bad guys. You have some Breen, give us some Tholians, and then give us some Talaxian pirates running around.
That'd be fun as hell, Fatheree. And you know what? They need these like mighty mullets going on.
Yeah, give them like the weird Neelix mohawk mullet, but make them be like actual like menacing pirate threats that are like really like scary and dangerous.
I think it'd be cool. I think they could have a little lightness in it too, but yeah.
Speaking of lightness, we had that weird space deer that can't like leap over. Michael is like literally like mending fences. I was like, I think that animal could leap over that pretty easily if it's anything like like a earth deer, or I don't know. Maybe it's supposed to be like a fox and not a deer. I don't know, but I like that it was named Alice because, as we all know, Michael's mom, or foster mom, I should say, Amanda Grayson, read Alice in Wonderland to her as a little kid, and I like that. Oh, even far off in the 33rd century, Amanda Grayson is still being remembered. I liked that.
Yeah, that's legit.
It also made me think like, oh, this like Captain Leto Burnham, he's Spock's nephew. It's like, that's a hell of a legacy to have.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
This
kid is gonna have to have like one of those families where he's like, oh man, I got a lot to live up to.
Oh, something else about him that I didn't say in the main show is that he must have his dad's Quajon ability to work the spore drive, because we didn't see Stamets on the disco when it did like that spore jump at the end. So it must have been Leto must have been in the chamber working the spores, because I would assume as Book's son he would have that ability.
I guess it could have been Stamets, though, right?
Yeah, but they didn't want to say if it was or wasn't, because they don't know what they're going to do with him. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't have been, I guess, with what we know.
You want a spore son.
Here's a fun one. Michelle Paradise, the showrunner, her voice is actually that computer voice that says, "Sorry to interrupt, Admiral. Your shuttle is arriving momentarily."
Nice.
It's odd that they didn't show that until like the last episode, but all the Tricom badges, I guess you have like a computer that can talk to you. Like my phone, if I say, "Hey, Google," I don't want to say it right now because then everyone who's listening to this with that type of device, it will activate. But it's kind of like that when I talk to my device, it talks back to me, kind of thing. It'd be cool if it was Discovery showrunner Michelle Paradise's voice, but I don't know. Maybe she can do the computer in Starfleet Academy. That's probably not going to happen because she's a writer and not a voice actor. But I don't know. I thought it was fun to get her in there.
Yeah, that's neat.
The shuttle numbered 47. Easy one. Like, oh, we got to like write this like really quick before the strike. Let's just put like 47 on the shuttle, and that's a easy fan servicey thing to throw in there.
Sure.
And Leto's mission to Crepuscula had been pushed back so that he could make this trip with his mom. But Crepuscula is the planet that we actually are introduced to Burnham on when her and Prime Universe Giorgio are on that away mission in the desert in the very first episode in the series premiere of Star Trek Discovery. So it ties back into that.
Did not catch that.
And we won't have any subspace transmissions this week because we had a long finale episode to talk about and a long show to talk about it. But I would be curious what people thought about this finale and thought about season 5 as a whole. That's what Dave and I will be talking about next week. And we'd love to share some subspace transmissions we've received. So please comment on YouTube or reply to my post on social media. And let us know what you think. You can also join the Tex-Trek Discord server and chime in over there. Let us know what you thought about the finale and the season as a whole, or even like the entire show as a whole.
Yeah, people I've just been continuing to skim lots of comments in our audience tonight, and people have thoughts. I feel like they seem mostly positive, but there's certainly not without criticisms. And pet peeves and other things. So yeah, let's hear it all.
Yeah, just like if Star Trek and Discovery, if it's all about like, oh, we're all like these individual different species, and then we all come together, and it's like the Roddenberry thing you were talking about, not only like accepting our differences, but like celebrate them. And I think people need to remember to do that, more often when people have like different opinions than you or different views than you. As like. Even like I can't really enjoy that topping on my pizza or like that genre of music or whatever, but I'm happy for the people who can, and
Fatheree,
I want more people to have that mentality.
when I'm highlighting comments from our viewers in the chat, I like to highlight comments sometimes right after I've said something that completely disagrees with me. It's fun to do, or with you. It's good times.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're embracing that diversity, and sometimes I can.
Yeah. So tell us if we ever say something and you're like, no, that's the total opposite. It's actually this. Then please chime in and let us know.
Our wise viewers and listeners are pretty good at that. Self-expression does not seem to be a problem for them. What Spock says that, right? Something like that.
Well, it's a good community, and I love getting the feedback and responses that we get. And like I was saying, this is doing this content is apparently like where I find a lot of meaning in life. So I'm glad that people respond to it, because it would be very lonely otherwise. And I'm very thankful to have you along on the journey, Dave, and everyone else who collaborates with us. It's been a lot of fun, especially these 7 years of Discovery, and talking about that show over 5 seasons has been a lot of fun in and of itself.
Yeah, thanks for going on this journey with us. Let's keep it going, of course, and we'll have at least one last disco talk next week.
That's right. And I'm sure we'll eventually return to Discovery at some point. I plan on doing this for 47 years. I'm on a 47-year mission. So we started in 2016, actually, before Disco premiered. We recorded Tex-Trek #1 on the 50th anniversary, September 8th, 2016. So I'm gonna try to keep doing this until First Contact Day in Bozeman, 2063. That'll be it's a 47-year mission I've assigned myself, but I appreciate everyone who's going on it with me. And there's going to be plenty of Star Trek to talk about in the months and years to come. We're going to get Prodigy and Lower Decks at some point this year. Strange New Worlds next year. We're getting this Academy show. Who knows? Maybe a movie in the theater, but we're definitely getting Section 31 on Paramount Plus soon. So lots of stuff happening. And Dave, are we ready to announce what we'll be talking about after we wrap up Discovery Season 5 next week?
Sure, if we want to. Yeah, I'm down.
It seems pretty topical. So there's been a lot of Star Trek expanded universe content over the years. We occasionally will talk about the comic books or the novels or whatever. So we're going to do some of that again, but we're going to talk about some crossovers with another beloved genre franchise. There is some Star Trek X-Men crossover material. X-Men's really popular right now with X-Men 97. We got Deadpool and Wolverine coming out in theaters soon. So
X-Men 97 is so good.
Yeah, so highly recommend checking out that show on D+. But also there's
the 2 comics that they did related to it and the novel.
Yeah, so that'll be coming in the future weeks. But as far as next week, Discovery Season 5, the whole damn thing, we're going to talk about it, and we would love for you to join us for that. So as always, live Fridays at 7 p.m. or listen to us wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.